I would challenge you on that. That's actually not how it works, at least not the context I see it through. Your only battle in front of you right now is today. The problem is that we import tomorrow's to-do list today, and then you get anxiety and you get overwhelmed, and then you feel anxiety and overwhelmed, you get out of action.
Welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I am here with Joe Roberts, who is the author, speaker, and just an amazing individual. He's also known as the Skid Row CEO. And I had a little conversation with him before we dive into this, and he's promised that if you stick around for the whole episode, he's got a little gift for everyone that's listening. But I promise you, this guy is, when we talk about possibility, and what you can achieve or do in life, this guy is probably one of the most inspiring people that I've come across. He was highly recommended by another guest of the podcast, Sam Dema, and I'm really honored to have a chance to chat with him today. So, Joe, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on the show, Chris.
So, I feel like obviously I can give the 30-second bio of who you are, but I'm sure where does the term, this is maybe the best way to understand who you are, the Skid Row CEO, where does that title come from? What's your quick background before we dive in?
Yeah, so the elevator pitch on that, or the short version on that, is in 1989, I was the guy pushing a shopping cart collecting cans and bottles to support a drug dependency. I was one of those people you'd see in a city or town across Canada, United States, struggling with my mental health, struggling with homelessness. I got a second chance, went back to school, graduated with honors, went out in the business community, absolutely crushed it. In less than 12 years, I went from pushing a shopping cart collecting bottles to be the Canadian version of the American dream and finding myself on the cover of Canadian Business. So that's sort of the, Skid Row to CEO journey. I didn't stop there, though. I'm a firm believer in human possibility and potential. In 2016 and 17, I took on the biggest challenge of my life and actually pushed a symbol of homelessness, a shopping cart, 9,000 kilometers across Canada, to raise money and awareness for youth at risk. So I'm a firm believer that the greatest tragedy of life isn't that it ends too soon, it's that we wait too long to begin it because of fear, because of stories we tell ourselves. And because I'm a guy who used to live behind a dumpster, I understand the possibility and potential that lies inside each and every one of us. Unfortunately, it's dormant for many.
Like, I just when Sam told me this, it sounds like a movie. It sounds like this is not a real person. It's almost too good to be true. And at the same time, that's what gets me fired up and excited about this, because I would say, I mentioned this before, but uh, the to me, something that is really on my mind right now that I'm experiencing in the moment is just when you start acting in the way that of the person that you want to become, right? And you can't act like, I don't know if I'm doing a good job articulating this, but I have a vision for my life, right? It's great to have a vision of what you want. But many people, I think, don't make progress towards that vision because they're acting in their current thoughts, beliefs, and their current identity, or even their past identity of who they are. And the only way to progress is to define that future version of yourself and then think, what would that person do every day? What would they eat? What time would they wake up? What time would they go to bed? Who would they talk to? What kind of things would they be telling themselves in their head? What would they read? Like, all the things that you can do and access for any level, like that future person that you want to be, whether that's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, start acting like that person right now, and change like the identity that you're coming from into that future identity, and just do it today, if that makes sense. And when you start taking enough action repeatedly, consistently, boring, over and over and over, pretty soon you wake up and you're like, wow, I'm a different person. That's my succinct, like, in my life, I'm seeing this happen in real time. And there's all these books that I'm reading. I'm excited to read your book the Push for Change that you mentioned. But am I articulating something close to how you would say that? Or give me the like more seasoned, distilled down version of what I'm trying to articulate.
Well, look, I don't think there's anything new been written since the late 1800s. There's just a reformulation of the same ideas. One of the books that I love is As a Man Thinketh, by James Allen, late 1800s. I like reading from dead authors because they don't stand to gain anything. But if you look at how that influenced, Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, you look at how that influenced Clement Stone and Og Mandino and Ziggy Ziglar and Bobby Schuller and Dr. Norman Vincent Peale to give us the thought leaders that we have today, Jack Canfield, Tony Robbins. For me, it's looking at it and say, okay, what is the simplicity on the other side of complexity? You're bang on as far as the mindset, but I think that we vacillate in between the character we're creating and the character that from yesterday. And unfortunately, a lot of our lives are just recycled from our thoughts and actions of yesterday. Like 90% of who you are, 98% of who you are is from yesterday. So it's a slow and painful process, and I think we've got to give ourselves be a little bit gentle as we do sort of move ahead. I think the biggest piece is, yes, getting really, really clear on that possibility of who it is that you want to be and what it is that you want. Intention is everything. It trumps talent. It trumps opportunity. It trumps where you start in life. It trumps all the other roadblocks that you've got in your head that says, I can't get that done. All of that is bullshit. All you need to do is get a really clear idea of what it is that you want. So start with possibility. And then there's three things to manage. Action, A, inspiration or why, a lot of that stuff over the last 10 years, Simon Sinek, our why, our purpose, our passion. And then, but the third piece is to understand that there's roadblocks. That's the R. What are the psychological roadblocks, stories, limitations, the noise in our head? And what are the situational roadblocks? I don't have education. I don't know anybody. I don't have resource. I don't have money. Right? When you manage those things, now you're working with what Dr. Richardson and I call the AIR model. So possibility equals action plus inspiration plus roadblock or removal of roadblock. Right? So whether you're looking at, I want a 20% increase in my business. I know you've got a lot of home services contractors. One of the things that I know about that sector is you're really good at what you do. Maybe you don't necessarily know how to actually grow your business. You're working in your business, not on your business. Great book, Michael Gerber, So if I say I want a 40% increase, and to do that, I need to bring on a general manager. I need to bring on some people. All right. So the possibility is attracting one really good person into this business so that we can expand into that plan at the end, for quarter, as we head into quarter four and then quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 of next year. Right. So that's the possibility. What do I need to do? Action, list of action. Why do I want to do this? That's really important. And what's going to get in the way? That's hard to find good people, right? Or maybe I can't afford that person. So it's just simply busting down and saying, okay, who do I want to be when I grow up? What do I want to do? Why is that important? That right there, Chris, I think is the biggest thing. When we look at setting fitness or health and wellness goals, our mental health, for example, what happens is other things supersede that. So we have competing goals. And if we're not tethered to a good enough reason on why we want to do that, we'll never lose weight. We'll never run that marathon. We'll never climb that mountain because something else is going to bump that out of the way. Yeah. So having good reasons keeps our feet in action, because here's what happens. We say, okay, I want to grow my business, or I want to run that marathon, or I want to make my first million. You say, okay, good possibility. It excites me. And we get our feet moving. Yeah. And then something comes along, an idea, imposter syndrome, fear. Oh, I don't have that. Who am I to do all of that nonsense here? Or you run into a roadblock out there. Government changes the rules, or, whatever. There's some sort of crisis, COVID, right? So then that roadblock takes us out of action, right? So R comes in, action goes down, and guess what happens in the middle? We get distethered from our why. Anybody who's ever started a diet, health, fitness program has experienced that. January 1, get your pair of sneakers. You join your club. You go. You do whatever it is that you're doing. You join your I don't know, your what's the CrossFit, or you a running club, or you sign up for a gym membership, get your new pair of shoes, and you go out and you're inspired and your action is good. You're inspired, your action is good, and then bam, January 17th, you eat a pizza, you get in a fight with your significant other, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, eat a pizza. And then the alarm goes off at 5 a.m. You don't feel like it. So now the roadblock comes, you get out of action, and you're just tethered. Right. So as a coach, or as a mentor, as a dad, as a leader, I would say, okay, well, that's cool. That's normal and natural. You're going to get knocked out of orbit. Why are you doing this again? Okay, put your shoes on. Let's go. And oftentimes just getting back into action is that thing that rekindles why you want to go after that big goal. Now that works for small stuff. It also works for
yeah. This is making me think. So there's another Canadian. So many Canadians that are coming into my world, and I'm so grateful. We're actually not too far from the Canadian border up here in North Idaho. But by the way, like, which part of Canada are you in?
So I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia area.
Okay, because I was going to say British Columbia, which is directly north of us. Like Idaho still has a little bit of British Columbia feel. That is like I honestly think it has to be the most. I don't know if I could say, maybe someone might argue with me on beautiful, but it has to be the most awe-inspiring place in the world. Like the mountains, the just the epicness of nature up there is incredible. So anyways, Dan Martell, that's what I was going to say. So I just, you know Dan Martell?
Yeah, no, I know Dan well. He's in my LinkedIn feed. Real neat guy. He's connected to a bigger group of thought leaders, and I think a lot of things that we're talking about right now, there's some serious alignment in that. I know that I've tracked his story, and he went from an idea and manifested it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I believe he was on Tony Robbins's podcast, like a virtual live thing in this studio surrounded by monitors. And yeah, neat guy. He lives in Kelowna. He lives in the Okanagan Valley, I think.
Yeah. So I am in his SaaS Academy, which is like a coaching thing for software companies. And I also, about a month ago, started his, it's actually exactly a month ago, his fitness and wellness program. And I'm an athlete. I played basketball in college. Like, I've worked out at CrossFit for 8 years. I identify as I'm an athlete. But this AIR analogy or acronym that you're giving me, I'm like, oh, I'm taking what I'm experiencing right now and putting it into this. But one of the R, removing roadblocks, on one hand, I remember I sat with the offer from Dan for 4 months, and I was debating, should I do this or not? And it was $3,000. And I was like, that's a lot of money. I don't know if I want to spend that. And for someone to tell me to eat better and start working out. And I was like, I already work out. I have discipline. Like, what is this going to do for me to, like, a meal plan or whatever? But I will tell you that the part for me that feels like I'm accelerating so quickly is someone giving me the roadmap and saying, wake up at this time, eat this food, an hour later, have this thing, then have this for lunch, then do this. And these are the workouts you're going to do this day, this day, this day. These days you're going to rest, and just like take the thought out of it. That would be removing roadblocks, right? Like,
well, I think it's all three. I think that when you belong to a community, and I've had really great coaches and mentors, is that yes, there's accountability to the action, because without the accountability, you're left to your own. And if you could have done it on your own, you would have done it on your own. So oftentimes when we enter into community or enter into an accountability or a coaching agreement, number one is accountability. Number two is to remind you when you hit the roadblocks, is that gentle, sort of nudging back, or that tough conversation like, what are you doing? I thought we were doing this. Okay, no problem. You're going to change that, but I thought we were doing this. And so helping sort of, navigate you through. Great coaches will acknowledge the humanness and then encourage you back into the why. Yeah. And so I think that it's all three, because the three pieces of the model, by the way, this isn't just an acronym we made up in our garage or our basement that, this is actually from Sean's PhD. Sean's a former Olympic athlete, doctor of psychology. He trains some of the highest profile elite athletes on earth. And so this is the kind of thing that wins Stanley Cups. It's the kind of thing that wins Super Bowls. It's the kind of thing that'll get you a gold medal.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah, I think
so. And I would agree with that. It's all of those. But for me, I felt like, I had the action in my life before, but I would say having a really detailed plan, you realize how much you were like, my diet was just literally, it's like I was on hard mode, extra hard mode in the video game, and you start getting all the aspects of your life correct, and all of a sudden you're efficient and your energy and your focus is dialed, and all of a sudden you start making progress at speeds that you felt like it literally seems impossible in 30 days, how much better I feel, the way I look. And I'm like, I'm just started and I still am motivated, and I would have fallen off, or just been stuck. I've been gaining a pound a year for 10 years. And, anyway,
I think one of the things that I hear, and I'm a little older than you, so I'm 57. Okay. And here's what I know is that the older you get, if you're moving in the right way from a leadership perspective, it's about taking things out of your life. It's success, and leadership is about the removal, not the addition. And so when you've got the singularity of focus, what you do is, it's kind of like what Zuckerberg said about wearing a white shirt. It's just one less decision I don't have to make. I just wear a white shirt, and I don't have to think about that. It's one less thing, right? Having that plan takes away getting out of your lane, and that gives you more energy and focus on other things. On top of that, you also gain emotional momentum, because now you're putting days, you're doing streaks, right? And that streak gives you the emotional currency and makes you feel better and makes you strive harder. And you get all of that from that accountability and that community and that tribe stuff. And that's why I'm such a huge advocate that a leader or an entrepreneur who's out there who's doing it alone is in bad company.
Yeah. You don't trust, or what's the there's a Bible verse about being like it's good for like to go in twos, going out in the world alone is not a good idea.
Yeah, my favorite is iron sharpens iron. Yeah. And 1 + 1 makes 3. I mean, that sounds trite, but I can sit with some, friends like Sam or Alan, or, you talked about Dan Martell. You hang around with these people who are forward leaning, who are ahead, and who have, a little bit more mastery in their life. Warren Buffett said, we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And I learned that really early. That one of the books, I know you're going to ask me later, but one of my favorite books is Think and Grow Rich. And in that book, Napoleon Hill through Carnegie says, create that council of peers and hang out with those people. Half of my success today is because I hung around with really good people who didn't just pat me on the back. They kicked me in the backside. They had tough conversations and asked me, what are you doing? And I think that's so key is to have that accountability and support. It's about supporting the person, but challenging the behavior.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have a warm, fuzzy relationship with your coach. You should have a deep level of respect, but also know that if you bring something to them, because I think it's a poor reflection of leaders, parents, coaches, pastors who just sort of let people slide. You're not doing them any favor.
Yeah.
You know, in the world that I come from, in the long-term recovery community, you see something and don't say something, that person may not be here next week.
Yeah.
You know, you think about safety environments. Okay, so we've got a lot of people who are in home services, painters. You see somebody setting up a ladder the wrong way, and you don't say something, and they come off that ladder hard. It might only be a broken arm, but it could be a concussion, it could be a head injury, it could be a, you know. So I talked to a lot of safety groups, and so in that context of holding people account and saying when you see it is really, it's really key. But if you're not good at that, you know, having those right
Yeah.
people around.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things that I'm curious about in your journey is when, or like, so you're literally drug addict, collecting cans, pushing a shopping cart. Like, legit, like how and how, like, I guess that's the question is how do you, what was the, if you were to break down the process of steps, like I'm assuming that there was the thought of like, I got to do something else. Like I can do better than this or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was like the first step. But do you remember like what was the first step where you like reversed the, like you turned against the current and took a step in the other direction and you felt that resistance and then you took another step and another step. Like that's how I'm envisioning when you're down that far, you got a long ways to go, but you have to turn around. You have to be like, okay, I'm going to start in the right direction. And then, like, on some hands, that's the most courageous and hard and most difficult for potentially. But there's also like the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh steps when you're like, this is going to be a grind. And I'm like, that back to your air analogy, you got to have all those things dialed. But yeah, how did you do that?
And now a quick word from our sponsor, which is Boolean Review. Boolean is a review software that my wife and I own, and we sell this software to home service businesses. So I know there are many different people that listen to this podcast, but if you know someone, an electrician, an HVAC business, a painting company, maybe a coffee stand, someone that is providing service to customers and get found online by customers, we would love to talk to them. This is a review software that is the highest converting review software in the home service space in particular. And if you're wondering what that means, if you have 100 clients in your business, the typical business gets between 1 to 2% of those customers. So for every 100, they would get one person or two people to leave them a review on Google. Other review softwares get between 3 and 5%, and the Boolean review software gets 20% of your customers to leave you Google reviews, and these are fantastic Google reviews with lots of words, keywords that are going to help with SEO, pictures, stories, the names of your employees. So if you want to learn more, check out booleanreview.com. And now back to the episode.
I would challenge you on that. That's actually not how it works, at least not the context I see it through. Your only battle in front of you right now is today. The problem is that we import tomorrow's to-do list today, and then you get anxiety and you get overwhelmed, and then you feel anxiety and overwhelmed, you get out of action. And then the whole thing collapses, right? The fight in front of you is today. All you got to do is get through today's sunset. That's it. So what can I do today that can help improve my life? You know, in Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about how can you make winning easy, right? So for me, if we go back to the story, I was that guy pushing a shopping cart, struggled with my mental health, chronically homeless, living in Vancouver's downtown east side, the poorest postal code in Canada. On my worst day, I sold the boots off my feet to support my drug dependency. 3 days before Christmas, I'm walking down the cold, wet sidewalks, the Pacific Northwest, like literally not wanting to be alive anymore. So, like, to sort of pause that for a second. So when I'm talking to people and they're going through stuff, I get it. I've been painted into a corner, right? In that moment, I did something, instead of acting on feelings of self-harm, I reached out and I asked God for a second chance. I wouldn't describe myself as deeply religious, but I've always had faith. And the prayer went something like, give me a second chance. I won't waste it. And I'll do something to help others. The next day I walked into a shelter. They got me a pair of shoes. They hooked me up with my mom. I asked mom for a second chance. She came out. She lived in north of Toronto. So I went back and stayed in her home. I got into alcohol and drug treatment. After 6 months of treatment, I went off into college. After 3.5 years at college, I graduated with honors, and I went out into the business world. And all that negative life experience actually was an asset. We look at COVID, or we look at the way the world is right now. It's really easy to say that's negative. Is it? Time will change the context of things for you. That horrific divorce, that loss of a loved one, that addiction, that thing that you overcome, that can actually become our greatest asset. And no one listening to this today will ever be able to see their lives without, for example, the experience of what happened in COVID. And from that, there's serious assets. We know how to solve unsolvable problems. We have a context of what a bad day looks like. And so if you mine those pieces, that's what I did. And so when I went out into business, I crushed it because I had the ability to communicate with people. I had perspective on what a bad day looks like. And a bad day isn't losing a contract or a 600-point drop in the Dow Jones. I've had bad days, real bad days. And the third piece was I had well-worn neural pathways on how to solve unsolvable problems, because I woke up every single morning. And this is the great entrepreneurial dilemma, isn't it? It's like we want to go from here to here. I don't quite know how we're going to get there. It's not like we're working in the confines of a corporate structure where we've got a model and people and resources, and HR to go to and leadership to go to and mentorship. It's us. And we're out, spinning for prizes. We've got a dream that we're chasing, but there's gaps, right? Probably, if I was just to wrap up this idea, one of the most impactful leadership discussions I had was with a guy on a park bench about 3 weeks before I sold my boots, with a man named Gus. And he looked at me, Chris, and he said, he got to know my name. And he said, Joe, you're a remarkable young man. He says, if you're able to deal with this addiction and homelessness, you could go out into this world and you could do something absolutely extraordinary with your life. He said, there's more to you, Joe, than you can see. Sitting beside him on that park bench was a man with dirty fingernails, scruffy beard, matted hair, and clothes I've been wearing for a year. But for the first time in my life, someone other than my mom or my daddy spoke to my potential. I believe that the greatest tragedy of life isn't that it ends too soon. It's that we wait too long to begin it because of fear. We fear failing. And you're looking at it and talking to a guy who's literally experienced everything that most people fear. And I'm fine. I went to jail. Not proud of that. I was homeless, unemployable, suicide ideation. Like everything that people fear is going to happen to them if they fail. I was lonely. I was unsuitable for any kind of human intimate relationship. I lost it all. And yet, here I stand, right? Inside each and every one of us, we're not defined by the stuff that happens to us, by the stuff that's said to us, by the stuff that we grew up with, but the bullies that impacted us, by the noise in our head and the limitations that we tell ourselves. All of it is an illusion. And if you have the courage to just set that aside for a day, just today, just do it today. then you can begin to alter the trajectory of your life. And that's agency. That's power. That's taking it back. And that's something that is at the core of who I am. That idea that, by the way, Gus spent 8 minutes with me. 8 minutes waiting for a bus. Now, everyone listening to this, you think about who you are, Chris, how you got here, your values, your perspective, the people you've met along the way, friends like Dan Martell, but go a little deeper. It's like, who are you and how'd you get here? Maybe it's mom and dad, grandpa, maybe it's a pastor or a group, a set of ideologies. Maybe it's not even a person. Maybe it's a book you read or it's something that influenced you. But all of us have five people who have impacted who we are, help shape the way we see the world. Yeah. Well, guess what? You're on someone's list. Even an introvert impacts and connects with over 10,000 people in their life. Now, if you're in a leadership role, that can grow exponentially. As a speaker, I've spoken to 2 million people, and I've shared Gus's idea. And that's my mission, is to share that idea of possibility with as many people before, I hit the end of that runway.
That's awesome. So I just feel like one of the things that, and I actually asked Dan this, and he gave me an interesting answer. I'm curious what you would say, because it's still a desire or passion. And I would say maybe this is part of my why, but like I love that you brought up the Warren Buffett quote. That's legitimately my top 3 quotes are that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's something that I embodied when I was in high school, and I believe that to its core. The other one is I call it the Spider-Man quote, but it's the Bible verse. To whom much has been given, much will be expected. Mm-hmm. But in the Spider-Man world, it's with great power comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, from my perspective, why am I driven? Why do I want to grow and be inspirational and have a family and be a good dad and grow a business and employ people and be healthy and whatever, to be disciplined? And I feel like I want the people that I love and that I care about to know that they can do it too. Because I know that I hit the jackpot when it comes to 2 loving parents. We're, basic mm-hmm. middle class, regular family. I went to private school basically because my mom was brilliant at getting all the scholarships and everything that she could to earn or to afford it, right? And anyway, so all these things, but I don't. I feel like there's so many people that I see that have dreams, have passions, want to start a business, want to do the art thing, want to do the music thing, or write a book or whatever. And exactly like you said, they're paralyzed or out of fear of someone's going to say something, or what are people going to think of me, or whatever. And I feel like the more that I push through and push into those things myself, the more I'm I just want to give this to more people, right? I want the people that I love and know and care about. Mm-hmm. I want to help other people too, but it's the people near and close to me are the ones that I really am go do it. Exactly what you said. What's the worst case scenario? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So anyways, I'm how do you get more people to do that? What would you say? What's the answer to, what's the best way to, I don't even think it's motivate, but it's change the perspective or the mindset. What is holding people back really? And how do you affect that part of them?
Well, what hold people back is it's in that R section, it's in that roadblock, and that's different for different folks. One of the things that you said that pinged off for me, and you said it a while back, which is, why do I want to do this? the most natural and normal thing for anything living on this planet is to grow, is to reach for the sun. And one of the biggest and most insidious ideas in there is that we've created IP in various different forms within our culture, within our families, within our education system, within our faiths, to keep ourselves artificially small. And I'm not a fan of that. I really am not. I'm not a fan of false humility. A tree reaches unapologetically for the sky. Every form of life that you see on this planet right now is in a struggle to get and be the best expression of itself as possible. Some of the roadblocks are that, oh, I shouldn't be that, or I shouldn't do that. And Boulder Dash. How now the question that you posed is, how do you help? The best thing that I can do, because there's two camps, I try to hang around with those who are thirsty, hungry, because those are the ones that are more likely to take action. For those who are not, I'll be your encourager. I'll champion, I'll inspire you. But inspiration without action is impotent. It just doesn't change if you don't get off the couch and put your shoes on. Right? So what I'm trying to do is to be that encourager and example. But ultimately, it comes down to the science we know about transformation and change, which is Carol Dweck's work on fixed versus growth mindset. If you've got a fixed mindset that you can't, the only thing that's going to change your emotional climate is to take some steps into the emotional uncertainty so that you can see. And you just described it like 10 minutes ago when we were talking about having that plan. By having that plan, you take those steps forward in and of yourself. You know how to exercise. This isn't new for you, but by having, that's when you get the streaks to 7, 14, 21 days into the thing. And that's when things start to change. In Carol Dweck's research, she said that kids that take action are more likely to experience their possibility. They'll learn, they'll grow. Yeah. And the growth mindset is a better indicator of success in life than SAT scores. So the question you pose is, how do you get people off the couch? How do you get them to lace up? I think the thing that I try to do is not motivation, is inspiration. Spark. If I can fire something up in you, yeah. So that's the support piece. But then the challenge is, okay, bottom of the ninth, 2 out, bases loaded. What are you going to do, bud? What are you going to do? And I work with people because I'm a long-term recovery person. I'm working with people who I'm having that conversation. I'm knee to knee with them. And they're facing the abyss. They're facing, certain demise if they don't change. So I play in some serious arenas where it's not just about losing money. It's losing family. It's losing your kids. It's losing your life. How can I inspire you to put your shoes on? Just walk with me one day. Show up tomorrow and do it again. How do we, create that as a pill for the species? I don't know. But there's enough hungry people out there. There's enough thirsty people that are willing to lace up and take the steps. And the folks that I surround myself with are the doers. And that's not a judgment for the other ones who aren't quite at the starting line yet. I hold a possibility that they will, but maybe whatever they're going through, they're still processing. Their time hasn't come yet.
With a guy. Yeah, I just had a conversation with a guy who he called himself a perpetual non-implementer. He's going to all these, the Brendan Burchard, the Ed Milet conferences, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to another one," and then he said, "But I always go to these things and I don't implement." And
right.
I was like, "Well, first of all, I think the fact that you just you labeled yourself as that is a problem. So you should change that voice in your head." Second thing though is why, but you keep going, maybe you're just not ready, you keep showing up, keep doing the thing without shame or regret or, oh, I should have done more last time. It's like, well, you didn't, but you're here again. So now's your chance to act, like it's not, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that there's this idea of like, I read the book and now my life should be different. And it's like, I mean, maybe, but you also read a book. You can read another one, you know what I mean? And read, and then implement something from that book, or like, I don't know. It's just like, it's always just move forward with today with whatever, just so.
There is I think partly because of social media, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Insta, LinkedIn to some degree, where we've become addicted to manipulating emotion. And so when I see these recycled crowds going to every conference but not changing, I think that partly, that has to do with the machine, and because it's in someone's interest to have you come back. I would love to put myself out of work. That, the world would enter into this sort of new phase where each one of us wakes up to our possibility and potential, picks up the mantle that's our opus, and marches forward with courageous action. And I believe we're on the precipice of a time when in the not too distant future we'll look back and call this before. But for now, it's like, yeah, I see that a lot myself. It's like people they want to feel better. They just don't want to do better. And that's okay too. It's like, I've sat in rooms of recovery where you see the same guy come in and out for 10 years and then he gets it. So it's planting seed. We'll see that in our faith circles too. It's like that same person struggling with that same issue. They're in their 7th relationship. They're not getting any traction, but there's something broken back here. Once that gets repaired and fixed, and if that person wants to sort of step up and take accountability for their part in it, then things can change. But
love it.
Yeah.
So keeping an eye on time, let's dive into the book recommendations. So what was the first one that you mentioned?
So one of my favorite books is Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. It's sort of the entrepreneur's Bible. I like that. Second book I like, I'm actually looking at right now, a signed copy of James Clear, Atomic Habits. For somebody who's struggling to get traction, Atomic Habits is by far one of the best personal development books I've read in 10 years. And then number 3, it's a toss up. There's so many. I'm reading a book right now is by Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL, and it's Extreme Ownership. And I like that. I'm a fan. Look, I support people and their challenges. I've been through my share, but I know that ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to create transformation in your life when you finally sit across from your sorry choices and decisions and say that I'm fully responsible for that. And now I'm going to change it. Jocko talks about extreme ownership and leadership. And it's fascinating because it transmutes into business, but he's talking about it from a position of being in war theater where bad stuff goes wrong all the time. And his favorite saying is good. That went wrong. This didn't arrive. We don't have this. Those people didn't show up. Good. Because he understands that there's positive in all of that. I think that there's one big part that we're leaving out though, Chris, around this idea of possibility and taking action and the stuff that I've extracted from books is that I didn't just go from living on the streets to being successful in business. In 2003, I left because I wanted to have a deeper impact in the world. I was making lots of money, but legacy became really important. And this happens to us when we get into our late 40s and early 50s. We start asking the question of what difference can I make in the world? And so I left and I took on a challenge to walk across Canada to raise money and awareness for youth at risk, to give them a fighting chance so that they could access their possibility. And so over the course of 17 months, I pushed the symbol of homelessness. You can see it on the book there. A shopping cart, 9,000 kilometers across the second widest country on earth. We raised millions of dollars. We changed the face of some communities forever. And we impacted over 100,000 young people. And to put 9,000 kilometers into perspective for someone, let's say, living in the States, that's the distance from New York City to Santa Monica Pier back to New York City.
Wow.
With one Canadian winter. And in the middle of winter, I was 1,000 miles north of Minnesota. So when I talk about...
Was that no rest days?
There was 6 days on, 1 day off.
Wow.
Yeah. We did
How
400
hard was it to get back at it on the first day back, or which day of that 7 cycle is the hardest?
Depended on the biorhythm, depended on what we were dealing with, because it wasn't just the walk. I got up every single day and did 35,000 steps. 24 kilometers was the minimum. I don't know what that is at 17 miles. But then we would do an event. So we did 454 events in 517 days.
And this is a talk that you're giving?
Yeah, this could be to 1,000 kids in a school. It could be to a mayor. It could be to, 20 people at a trades building. We worked with law enforcement. We worked with service providers, government, municipal, provincial, federal government. We worked with over 100,000 kids in schools.
I have to ask, was the idea like you were like, hey, I'm going to go walk across Canada? Or was it like, hey, maybe I should walk across town? And then it was like, maybe British Columbia. Well, if I'm going to go this far, did the goal grow from its inception? Or did you?
No. The goal, it wasn't the goal. It was the why. We started with the why, which was, what could we do to give kids that have all the possibility in the world, but they come from impossible environments? Kids that have single parents, kids that come from family violence, kids that come from early childhood trauma, kids that come from substance use disorder, mental health, inclusion issues, generational poverty and trauma. Like we looked at that group because that was the group that sort of I evolved out of. What could we do to give them a fighting chance to get through school and transition into adulthood? Because it's oftentimes when we're 14, 15, and 16, you talked about being fortunate coming from, a good family, 2 parents, you were afforded the opportunity to make a mistake or two without it costing you everything. Not every household not every kid has that. So that's what we started with. Then we said, okay, so that's what we want to do. That's the outcome that we're shooting for. What's the best way to create, to do that? And that's when we started thinking about, inspired by people like Terry Fox, a young man with one leg who tried to run across Canada. We were thinking about Rick Hansen, guy in a wheelchair who wheeled around. And we thought, yeah, why not go across the country? That's how it started. And the walk across the country became ancillary to what it was we were trying to do. It gave us the opportunity to ask for money, but also to raise awareness and to get into the press and to get into the schools. And so the walk really wasn't the why. The walk was the means to a why.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, I don't mean this in a bad way. Sometimes people don't like marketing, but it's really a great marketing synopsis of just like, I'm not going to forget that. It's a very memorable, like, hey, walks across Canada pushing a shopping cart. That is, they never heard before, never going to hear it again. I'm never going to forget that. And sometimes people are just like, I'm trying to raise awareness for youth. It's like, oh, okay. So like, I feel like I've heard 25, 50 people doing that as well. Not that they're bad, but yeah, I love
Well, you need to, in any business, you need to tighten up your value proposition differential. For folks listening, it's like, what makes you different?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I've been in business for 15 years. So what?
Yeah.
No, what makes you different? Up here, we got a guy in the Lower Mainland. His name's Jason Roberts. And he runs a home cleaning and service company called Men in Kilts. It's all in green, and their guys show up in Scottish kilts. And so the joke is, okay, what's going on when they're up a ladder? But it's fun, and he's used his heritage, and he stands out because there's 1,000 people that can come and clean your windows, clean your gutters, pressure wash your house, take care of things around the yard. But there's only one company where they're big green Scottish vans with, men in kilts. And it's like genius, brilliant.
Yeah.
Value proposition differential. Yeah.
I know we got to get you out of here in 2 minutes. So you have a book.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So one of the things, I'm in it to win it, and I'm in to help other people win it. And so we wrote the book. By the way, I'm dyslexic. It's my 4th book. So there's another, what is it? It took longer to write the book than it did to walk across Canada. And for those, we promised you at the beginning, if you stick around, I'm going to give you, Chris, access to the free book, the digital copy. And no strings attached. I'm not harvesting an email list and going to send things till you buy or die. This is just me saying, read the book. There's some really good stuff in there. There's an expanded story on the walk across Canada, my journey, but also some really good stuff in there for application of the AIR model that we talked about. So yeah, come and check it out. If people want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn, Google Joe Roberts, Skid Row CEO. I'm easy to find. My preferred place is LinkedIn, just because it's a professional place. But yeah, I also have a website, Skid Row to CEO. So if folks want to, connect with me. If anybody's planning an event, conference, they're looking for an inspirational speaker to change the context and elevate the room, that's what I do best in the world.
Awesome. And we don't have time for the explanation as to why, but give us your favorite or movie suggestion.
Yeah, we got a little time for that. So my favorite movie is, it's gonna, it's like many, it's Forrest Gump, but it's for different reasons. I love Forrest Gump because, well, I walked across the Canada and love Forrest Gump because it had a great music soundtrack. But there's a piece in the book where he asks the existential question in life, and most people miss this. At the end of the book, when his son opens the Curious George, the feather floats out. And through the entire book, Forrest Gump's asking, is it predestination, or are we just sort of randomly here? So do I have a purpose, or are we just floating about? And I love that a movie that was, about these simple ideas is asking the biggest question in life. Is it random, or are we destined for something? And the thing that I love about this is that we can create the meaning in our lives, and we can direct, where our energy and our purpose goes. And I think that's agency, and that's exciting stuff for me.
Awesome. Well, Joe, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for, first of all, pushing a shopping cart across Canada, and just the book and speaking and sharing your vision with everyone. It's been fun, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on today. And then your team will get information to our editors on how to get the book, and I'll put it down in the show notes below with some instructions on what to do.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show, and also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show. And also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.